Everybody good?
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
All right. Awesome. We'll get started right away. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to this hot city. Welcome to New Orleans, and most importantly, welcome to the New Orleans Jazz Museum. On behalf of the New Orleans Jazz National Historical Park, we're so delighted to have this partnership with the New Orleans Jazz Museum to provide free concerts and programs for your enjoyment. The mission of the New Orleans Jazz National Historical Park is to instill a public appreciation for New Orleans music, culture, history, and the people, and as well as be a global leader in promoting, protecting, and preserving this American art form, which is jazz. On Thursdays, actually once a month, we have a wonderful Talkin Jazz with a wonderful speaker and interviewer and curator, Mr. Fred Kasten, over here.
Thank you.
And every month, we have different guests, and so for this month, we have wonderful, I like to call them music educators, that they have educated young musicians that have been successful musicians and toured all over the world, but they've shared their knowledge and expertise, whether that be through the classroom or through authoring books or just schooling young musicians on the bandstand. And so we have Mr. Steve Masakowski on guitar, Peter Harris on bass, and John Vidacovich on drums. And once again, Fred Kasten, who doesn't have an instrument, but he's going to be talking a whole lot.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, folks, for joining us on what is unquestionably one of the coolest things you can do on an August afternoon in New Orleans. It's a beautiful air conditioning system here, courtesy of FEMA, ladies and gentlemen, following Hurricane Katrina. So glad you could join us for these three very talented artists, all New Orleans natives, all who've gone on to be top performers and educators and composers, and have brought New Orleans, have made New Orleans their home and pursued great careers. They've played with a who's who of jazz collectively, great artists of the 20th and 21st centuries. They've performed with many of them, and we're fortunate enough to have them performing regularly here in the Crescent City, like right now. Please welcome on the bass, Mr. Peter Harris, guitarist Steve Mazakowski, at the drums, John Vidacovich. I'm calling him the Johnny V3. All right, getting us off to a waltzing start over here on the bass violin, Mr. Peter Harris, ladies and gentlemen. 7-string guitar work, beautiful, from Steve Mazakowski. And over here on the drums and cymbals, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Vidacovich. John?
Yeah.
You're from New Orleans, right? What part of town did you grow up in?
Mid-city, Carlton and Banks. Mid-city, right in the middle of the city.
Pull that microphone down.
Oh.
Mid-city.
I was born. I was born here, and I grew up in Mid-city, right in the middle of the city, Carlton and Banks.
Carlton and Banks. And you don't live too far from that area now, right?
I still live in that neighborhood. Yes.
Yeah. So you put in a good bit of time in Mid-City over the years.
And through the years, I've moved around that neighborhood. You know, kind of, at first I was around Carlton and Banks, and I moved a few more blocks down, up Canal Street, and now I'm just like a block from the cemeteries.
Is that
I mean, I'm just like getting closer. You know, less distance. I'm thinking, I didn't cancel my stuff. I didn't cancel my policies with Schoen Funeral Home and all them other funeral. I canceled my policies. I'm just going to walk to the cemetery.
And just fall in
Yeah,
the
you
grave.
cats meet me there, and we'll party there, cut out all of that expensive, you know.
Right. That's right. It's just a short walk.
Casual.
A
Just
short
casual.
walk.
Casual.
A short stroll.
It'll be hot, casual. Yeah.
Was
Cool and casual.
our late friend Ronnie Burgess said, you got to try not to die in July in New Orleans, even if you only have a short walk.
Boy, that boy's a poet.
Well, that was quite an interesting neighborhood to grow up in.
Absolutely.
What kind of other folks were surrounding you? What kind of things went on in Mid-City in your young days?
When I was young, it still is. When I was young, it was beautifully mixed with all kind of like immigrants and first generation, like my mom. You know, she was pure, but first generation. And my grandparents, we lived with them. So I mean, it was full of immigrants. You know, that was cool. So I got to taste a whole lot of different people's culture. Literally their food, their music. You know, we played together as kids. So I mean, I was surrounded by lots of different cultures and a lot of activity. You know, it was fun. It was a great neighborhood. It still is.
Yeah. Well, I know you're like me, a 49er. You were born in 1949,
Yes.
so almost certainly no air conditioning in the early
No,
days.
50s, we were out, bro. We were out in the street playing and sweating. 60s, too.
Some things never change.
I swear, man, my high school never had no air conditioning.
Uh-huh.
Nah. It was right over there, too.
So you could hear a lot of what's going on in the other homes
Oh, yeah. Probably
for
too much.
good or ill, right?
Probably way too much. Those shotgun houses were close together.
Yeah, not too much space between your window and theirs, right?
6 feet.
What's for dinner tonight? Oh, across the street, right? Yeah, you knew. What about music in the neighborhood? Were there second lines going on? Any kind of
Yeah.
Street music?
Yeah. During the festive occasions, you know, any festive occasion, you know, there was always music. Of course, during Mardi Gras, during that time, during the whole season, there were several parades that were in my neighborhood. At that time, parades were all over town, as opposed to that kind of singular one or two routes that we have now. So in my neighborhood, there was about 3 different parades that passed. 2 directly in front of my house, and 2 or 3 down on Canal Street, which was 3 blocks from my house. And so and a couple of the parades started near my house. So that meant that musicians and parade people in the parade were collectively getting together to start the parade at noon. So they'd be starting, you know, so I could start hearing drummers like at 10:30, you know, and I could say, Grandma, can I go down there by the drum? She said, well, your uncle can take you down there. And then as I got older, man, she'd say, go ahead, man. So on those days that the parade was was starting in the neighborhood, as soon as I could hear the first drum, man, my grandma would say, okay, you can go. And then I would just drive my bike about 4 blocks and just go sit there and watch all of these, musicians and people. And, of course, I was drawn to the drums just because of the feeling of the bass drum. And hit the bass drum in the street, man, you could feel it. And as a kid, man, that was the first thing I attuned to. I reacted to, you know.
Yeah, I remember that very well growing up in Mobile at Mardi Gras parades. And that bass drum comes by, and you can feel it right here, man, in your chest.
Yeah, I was drawn to that.
Yeah.
I was drawn.
What, did you get a chance to actually start trying to do some drumming? Or when did you get to start playing?
From Jump Street. My grandma just sat me on the kitchen floor with pots and pans and sticks, and I mean, wooden spoons and fly swatters that she cut the edge off the fly swatter, and fly swatter was like, here's the part where you slap the fly.
Right.
She cut the edge off so that the little things would go like that. So then she made me a brush.
Yeah.
So I had a stick and a brush. Brush was the fly swatter, but I had a brush, bro.
Yeah. Flies were a problem.
My grandma was very creative.
Yeah, I
you
saw
know.
it. That was-
Sicilian, that's what I call it, the Sicilian brush. The fly swatter, yes.
Uh-huh.
I played with that fly swatter for many moons, bro.
What about graduating to actual sticks and drums?
Yeah, I guess I was about 10, 11, 12, all of that. You know,
Was there a school band of any sort? Or how did you get into that?
grammar school, I just kind of like, I was real short, so I kind of, like the guy told me, he said, nah, man, you know, we got too many drummers. You can't play drums. Well, I said, all right, what can I play? He said, well, you got funny teeth, so you can't play clarinet. I had buck teeth, right? Still do. So I said, play the trombone. I said, okay. So I went home. I told my mama, and said, Mom, I need a drum. So she bought me this she paid weekly on this raggedy used wooden parade drum. She paid about $3 a week for it, and I went to school with it, and I kind of hid behind all the drummers in the back because I was so short. So that way the music teacher wouldn't notice me. So I just kind of got away with that for several years, and then I kind of got some drum chops together enough to be stand up.
Uh-huh. What about listening to music outside of trying to play yourself? What kind of things were you hearing?
Everything and anything I could hear. We had AM radio, so. We didn't have a record player at first. You know, I think we got a record player when I was around 10, little thing with a handle on it. And that's when I started, my mom got in this Columbia Record Club, and she'd let me pick out records. And I would listen, I would just pick anything out, because they said, get 9 more records. So I would get a record that we both liked, that me and my mom. And then she'd say, pick out some records. So I would just pick out stuff. I didn't know what it was. I would pick out, what is this? How do you pronounce it? Shostakovich? Oh, okay. I'll listen to that. Yeah. You know, and I'd listen to it. So I got to really create, I listen a lot of big band music. Lots of big band music, Basie, Ellington, Kenton, Mancini. There was so much Mancini to listen to back then. And, I mean, there's just tremendous amounts of big band music that Buddy Rich, of course, and, and all kind of Woody Herman, man. I mean, I dug all of that. And plus I was digging like things like Louis Prima and Keely Smith, man. I thought that music was smoking, man. In my opinion, Louis Prima's band was hot. I mean, a little edgy, a little pushy, but they had an edge, bro. They definitely had an edge. And so I like things like that. I liked Nat King Cole, my mama turned me on to, and the Platters, and then there was a lot of R&B and beautiful blues music and rock and roll on an AM radio that I could sit down, put the radio on, a little bitty radio, and just sit there with a drum and a fly swatter and a stick and play along with the radio, So, I mean, it was pretty cool, that's kind of things, I mean, I just was, I just listened to anything because I didn't know the difference, between this and that you were supposed to like certain categories, and it just wasn't like that for me then, or any of my friends then, we just liked anything. It didn't make a difference, Yeah,
it's Duke Ellington, many other people have made that statement, there are only 2 kinds of music, good music and bad music.
It's very true. Very true.
And it doesn't really matter where it comes from if it's played well.
Yeah.
and it's of interest, and you'll learn something from it.
Yep.
Did you get a chance to start playing some then as you got a little older and a little more fluency on the drum kit with some of your peers?
Well, immediately I started playing. You know, I mean, after I had about a year of good instruction with Charlie Sewer, who is Don Sewer's brother.
Right.
Cats around here know who Don Sewer is. Charlie Sewer was a drummer, is a drummer, and he lives in Mississippi right now, and he's 88. I just got a message from him yesterday. It was crazy. I mean, this is the guy that taught me everything I know, you know. And he's 88 now, and he's just a great guy, and he just taught me the most useful, wonderful things that a lot of other guys were not getting taught. But he taught me this, you know. And there's a lot of things, you know, that he taught me that he didn't teach me, and that, you know, and therefore I couldn't quite measure up to other drummers. But what I could do was I could really fit into a musical situation, band or setting, better than the other drummers that were, you know. So I just kind of stuck with Charlie Sue, because basically what he was doing, he was teaching me how to play music.
Right.
You know, he was teaching me fundamental things to get by and this and that. But I was never as good technically as any of the other drummers of my peers that were around me, but I was more musical in the sense of playing with a band, being able to detect, you know, hey, back off, you know, hey, push it, you know, stuff.
Right.
Take instruction, you know. I was good at that.
Yeah, Charlie, by the way, has a great book on Don. And,
Yes.
And he's wrote for Downbeat for
He wrote for
Many
Downbeat
years.
articles for many years, you know, reviews and the ad-lib section, which was about the gossip of things. He wrote articles. He's wrote at least one good book that I know of off the top of my head. It's about the war years,
Right.
jazz,
Jazz,
bebop
right.
in New Orleans post World War II.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a good book.
It is.
Very informative. Because, you know, not a lot of people were writing about post bebop. You know, it's not like a big subject. You know, I'm sure y'all just running those bookstores and buy, oh, and the post bebop books. Anybody? No. Right. Yeah, back on it. Right.
Point me to your post-bop section.
Where's the post bop section?
Yeah. It's up here. Yeah. So what about you playing bebop or jazz, as you might understand it? Wasn't there like a youth jazz band that you were a part of pretty early?
When I was a very young kid, yes, it was Dixieland, which is a bad word to say. So you say traditional, but you know, it was a kid band, and I was 12 or 13. It's called Dunks Honky Tonks, and it was an old man who had a junkyard, and he had a piano in the shed. And every Saturday morning, kids would come from on Oak Street, and kids would come up to his junkyard and go in his shed, and he would teach us all of these songs. And, you know, everything from Saints Go Marching In, Bill Bailey, down in New Orleans, way down under New Orleans, Margie, you know, just
right.
the regular good traditional repertoire. He taught it to all of these kids, and he would take us out to when you got fairly good, you know, he would take about 5 or 6 of us out, like to the hospital, to like Charity Hospital, and we played for the people, or at a Veterans Administration Hospital, and we played for the guys in the tuberculosis ward who would come out in a yard with masks, and we play for them. We play at the Lighthouse of the Blind, the Home for the Incurables. We play for all of these. We just play, you know, and then when you got a little better, you know, when he got a call to play at, say, this rally, that rally, he might get $5. You might get $4. That's when I started making money, bro. And ever since then, you can see I've just been making money.
Yes, money.
It's like
money.
my wife says, man, she says, you know, she tells all her girlfriends, she says, yeah, I married a jazz musician. Boy, it's really great. You should see when he comes home off the road, he just comes home with tens of dollars.
Yes. That must have been a long trip
That's my wife's joke, yeah. Yeah, that was
to
a
get all the
long
way up to
trip.
tens.
Right, Steve, no. Me and Steve been in that van a lot.
Yeah. Well, I give you a chance to learn that repertoire, though, to put that under your fingers.
That's
very
right,
well.
baby.
And you have earned a few bucks off of that knowledge over the
I
years.
think so. I think,
Yeah.
I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
But, if you...
Well, you're not much of a complainer, man.
Do you have change for a 10? Can I borrow 9?
I don't have quite that much. I got a couple of pound coins left from my trip to Scotland, but that's about the best I can do. Well, let's hear some more. Speaking of music, let's hear some more tunes from you guys. How about some more music, ladies and gentlemen? right, yeah. Play on, gentlemen, play on. One more. Give us another one.
Oh, give us another.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. the Johnny V3, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Harris, Steve Mazikowski, John Vidacovich. John, where'd you go to high school here in Crescent City?
Went to high school in St. Aloysius, which is about 6 blocks down there on Rampart and Esplanade. Mm-hmm. It's not there anymore. There's some condos there now, but that's where I went to school, St. St.
And was music part of that experience?
That's how I got to go to school there. Yeah. I was going to public school up until about the 8th grade, and then St. Aloysius had a great jazz band. Ah. In addition to that regular school concert band, marching band, and all that, they had a great award-winning national stage band, they called them back in those years. But it was basically a big band, you know? And so their graduating drummer was graduating, and they needed a new young drummer to come in. I was young, new, freshman. I was lucky enough just passing in the halls of where Charlie Seward taught me those lessons in this little bitty room was another trumpet player named Clem Toka, who was the band director at Aloysius, who was teaching trumpet up there. And he said, I need a drummer for my school. And Charlie said, I got the boy. Yeah. So I got a scholarship because I couldn't afford to go there, a private school, a Catholic school, public. But I was lucky enough to get a scholarship, and so that kind of changed my whole life. When I got this scholarship for music and went to that school, I started. I was in a whole different environment. You went to Aloysius? Oh, you was one of those guys in Brother Lee. Coming back to collect on those swipes on the ass with the wooden stick that I got.
Bend over.
Swipes on the butt that I got with a wooden stick. Yeah. Bam! That weekly.
Still got bruises?
Oh, man, I got no butt. He beat my butt off, man.
That's what happened to it. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it was great. It was great. It changed my whole life. I got to hang out with, a whole different group of people, that were way smarter than me. So I learned a lot. All my friends were very kind of intelligent, most of them. Smarter than me. And anyway, so I mean, I made it. We did all right, and it changed my life. And I got into music really heavy, and that one thing led to another. Blah blah blah. And we've been playing in bands, and in high school we surely had teenage bands, and we played weekly. At CYO dances, and high school kids would go to these gymnasiums or the auditorium in high school where they had dances, and I would be playing in the band a lot, that was at those hired. So we had like teenage bands playing all the hits, and kids were dancing and all of that stuff,
and playing basically big band charts.
And in school, I was playing big band charts, everything from Stan Kenton stuff to West Side Story, Buddy Rich's West Side Story. Oh, wow. We had handwritten charts off of that because back in those days you couldn't buy charts; they were not published. Your band director had to sit there and slow the record player down in order to get a whole big band, figure out what 5 saxes, 4 bones, 5 trumpets, and he would copy out all of these parts, bro. There was no. Slow the machine down. You had to put your finger on the turntable to slow it down to figure out what they were playing. Then transcribe it back up to pitch,
Right.
But yeah. So we had great music. We had great musicians. We had great teachers. Joe Hebert came in after Clem Toka and turned the whole band around again for the 3rd time. He kept it on as award-winning big band, and we made some records at Cosmos. Yeah, I was up in there in Cosmos at 14 making a record.
Pretty cool, Daddy.
Oh, yeah, bro, it was cool.
Yeah.
School days.
Yeah.
School days.
So a lot of music in high school. On to Loyola then for college?
Tons of music. Nothing but music all day, all night. All kinds of music, too. Yeah, that was another good thing that happened to me, too, was going to college. I didn't think it would be a good thing, but the military took a look at me and said, you know what, we don't think we want to issue you a weapon. So, yeah, I didn't think I would be very effectual in Vietnam. They had a feeling that I would lose the war or something. I don't know. But they didn't really really take a big interest in me, the military.
And they say the military doesn't make good decisions, man.
Yeah, really. I'm pretty sure I could have stopped that stuff immediately. Talk to somebody.
Yeah. Well, I remember little shenanigans on the.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that, but I don't,
Yeah, right.
I'm all about the military, bro,
Yeah, right. Well, but let's see, Loyola for a while. Then didn't you leave school and just work for a minute as a musician?
Yeah, I quit school a couple times, went out to Vegas, Las Vegas, to play with Wayne Cochran and the CC Riders, and I couldn't stay because of draft and military problems, and so I came back from Vegas and went back to school, and I quit school again about a year later and went back to Vegas to play with someone else, and I was my plan at that point was to go to California, Los Angeles in particular, study with Shelly Manne, try to get in on a recording scene. That was my whole plan in 1969, but it didn't work out because the second time when I was in Las Vegas, I had auditioned for a job at the Playboy Club as the house drummer because you had backed up acts, comedians, singers, and all of that. Good jazz, great jazz band, modern. And I got called to play, even though I had auditioned for that gig and didn't get it. Then I split for Vegas. I got called out in Vegas 6 months later. And Al Bledel said, "Hey man, I want you at the Playboy Club." I said, "No man, I'm not coming back to New Orleans. I'm going to Los Angeles." And he said, "Okay." Called me back the next day with more money. I said, "Okay, I'm coming back to New Orleans." And so I came back to New Orleans and worked at the Playboy Club 6 nights a week, 5 years, and finished college and played a lot of music and grew up a little bit more. I was around older, very seasoned, smart musicians who had to keep me in line. Al Bledel, Bill Newkirk, Richie Payne. I played with great musicians. I was very fortunate. They all taught me a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that got you in the orbit of Al Bledel, particularly, who was
I used to go in the
significant.
daytime, and me and the piano player would sit up in the showroom, and he would just play standards on the piano, and I would play drums. And he wouldn't tell me what he was playing, the name of the song, and he wouldn't count off the song. And he wouldn't tell me the name, and he wouldn't count it off, and he wouldn't play the melody. He would immediately start improvising on the changes to the standards, and that really made my ear really attuned to what playing standards and bop was all about. I had to hear the harmonic rhythm in order to figure out the structure of the song, where the bridge was. I had tension and releases. I had to hear it because he wasn't telling me what to do, and he wasn't giving me any melody on what to do. So I had to actually hear anyway. And I also got with a saxophone player at the same time who was doing it in a linear way. He would play just drums and saxophone. He would just start playing changes on the saxophone, but unlike a piano, there's no chords, so there's no vertical harmonic rhythm for me to follow. I had to hear the harmonic rhythm spelled out in a linear way because he was playing saxophone. He can only play one note at a time.
Right.
So a piano player can play dum, it's a triad or chord, but saxophone player has to go da 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 da. You just got to arpeggiate it. So you got to go from hearing songs like this to hearing songs like this. So those two things right there at 21 years old completely turned my head around on the way to play drums. That's why I wasn't playing drums like the other cats,
Well, you'd had that inclination from the get-go.
From the get-go, I had that inclination, and luckily, those two things fell into place when I was 18, 19, and 20, because I figured out at an early age that, man, I got to do something else because all of these other drummers are way better than me, and I'll never get that good. So I have to take a different approach to the instrument. In addition to doing what the instrument's supposed to do, keep time, hold it, blah, blah, blah. I just had to you know, as an identity thing, I couldn't do what the other drummers were doing. I didn't have the technique, the speed, the chops, the muscle. I didn't have it. So I had to go for a more kind of like a imaginary melodic a musical effect, you know, try to get the abstract music out of this, because you can't, I don't have notes, you know, which is, I can't play any, you know, I can't play any real kind of definite kind of music. All I can play is rhythm. So, I mean, I don't have notes, so it's kind of a drag, but then I look at it and I say, wait a minute, it's kind of an advantage, because I can't hit a wrong note. So that took my thinking a little further, drumistically.
Yeah.
So I just, you know.
And there are tones that emanate from the various tunings of the drums and cymbals.
It's in my imagination.
Yeah. And you add the imagination
and hopefully
to
yours.
it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yours.
And in the ear of the beholder. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about writing music? Were you interested in that at that age?
I wrote a little bit, yeah, but I was more interested in playing other people's music. You know, I wrote, yeah, I still do, you know, but you know, I wrote so much in college, you know, for like homework and so much Bach stuff, and then I had arranging courses and big band. I wrote so much in college that I really don't like to write, but yeah, I popped out a whole bunch of songs, you know, but it's, you know, just something that either I'm challenged to do or something that pops up in my head and I do it.
Right.
You know, but as far as writing goes, I don't, you know, I'm not drawn to the pen, but I am drawn to other people's.
Uh-huh.
And you know, I'm eager to play their compositions. My compositions, you know, it's okay, but you know.
Well, you've worked with this guy right here, for example, who has written a lot of great tunes, Steve Mazikowski.
Many moons, yes. We go back about.
And Mr. Tony DeGrati, who has also filled the page with a lot of great tunes.
Yep. I've been knowing Peter
and James
for a long
Singleton.
time, too.
And James Singleton has written a good many things as well.
Yep.
And Peter has written a lot of nice tunes. So.
Yep.
You've had the chance to exercise that interest with a lot of really first-class composers.
We can play a Johnny Vidacovich composition.
Let's play it. Why don't you do that?
All right.
This is a Johnny Vidacovich composition called
New Day.
Hang out on the F for a while?
Yeah.
Chap, 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 chap.
New Day, John Vidacovich and Steve Mazikowski, Peter Harris, and Johnny Vidacovich. John, at some point in the 70s, I think the date may be somewhat in question, came Astro Project with Tony DeGrati. Was that the late 70s? Was that pin it down close enough? Or?
It's a good thing the other fellows are not here because there would be an argument. It's just me and Steve to argue, and me and Steve really get along. So I mean, we could just say, it's a well-known 70 event.
Pull that mic down. Pull that mic down, Daddy.
Oh, sorry, it was 70, yeah. 70-ish.
All right.
Yeah, it's about 75. Tony says it's like 77 or something, but I think it's more like 75 or 6, and then I went away and came back. I don't know.
Yeah. In any event, it still is an ongoing enterprise.
Yeah, it was 70s. How many decades is that? 3, 4, about almost 5 decades, I'd say we've been playing together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah, that's right, man.
Is a decade 10 years? But he ain't arguing. He used to argue with me about everything when we were younger. Man, the cat don't argue with me about nothing, man. That's why I sat in the back of the van the whole time, because every time I would say something, oh, shut up, Johnny, you know nothing. Back of the van.
Get back
All
there.
by myself. I sort of started reading a lot.
Yeah.
They left me back there a few times.
Oh, man. Come on out, man. Yes. Didn't notice for 500 miles.
What's that smell?
But that has been a joy to listen to, I say, from a listener's point of view, for however long it's been, over 4 decades.
Yes.
Yeah. And still a great band. It's been one that has brought New Orleans an approach to music which I've enjoyed immensely. A lot of original work and just really beautiful ensemble playing.
I'm really happy about the way that band just grew and grew and grew.
Yeah, it continues, I think, to
yeah.
No. I like you, but not that much. But also, you had, in the mid-'90s, you started a string of recordings with Michael Polera and Jeffrey Meyer, which has been a real interesting set. I think it's 5 now you've done, including the most recent one, ladies and gentlemen. Time out for a brief promotional announcement.
Yeah, thank you.
Out the box.
Out the box, yeah. That's brand new, and it's really good.
It is top notch. It
surprised me. I didn't like it, but then, I said, wow, this sounds okay.
The more you listen to it, the better you like it. Yeah. Well, I've been playing some of this on my little show, including I like Jeffrey's "So Long," the ballad on there.
Me too. That's Tony DeGrati playing that melody.
That's Mr. DeGrati. Yeah.
Yeah, he really eats that melody up.
He puts it in the right place there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Highly recommended, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if John brought any for sale with him today or not, but
no, I didn't. But the Louisiana Music
just across the way there has it. And,
20 yards across the street.
And so you've, with Michael, doing a lot of arranging and producing, and Jeffrey also wrote a lot of material and has produced. You've had that string of CDs now.
Yes.
Bank Street, Mystery Street,
Yes.
a couple of others, and this one.
Yeah, Steve was on Mystery Street, and I think that was the late 80s. It came out in the early 90s because it had some trouble in the late 80s getting off the shelf. It got stuck on the shelf for a couple of years. And, blah, blah, blah. But never mind with all of that. But would you ask me? I forgot.
Just talking about the fact that you'd had that good relationship for 20
Jeff
something
Meyer
years.
and Michael Polera. Okay,
Yeah.
the way that stuff started was Jeff Meyer writes a lot. Talking about, do I like to write? No, not so much. Jeff Meyer does like to write a lot, So he says, and he likes the way I play. So he says, man, I wrote these tunes for you to play, I say, okay, bro. And so he says, I want to make a record on you. I said, I got no money. He says, I do. No, at first neither one of us had no money, but we got some people to invest in it. And then the last 2 records that I made, Out the Box and Bout Time,
Right.
Jeff Meyer actually produced with his own money. But the first 2 records, he was the producer, but we had to get some executive money. So,
Right.
but anyway, we own them now. But Jeffrey Meyer, his compositions. And he would throw all the compositions at Michael, and he would tell Michael, "Hey, Michael, can you work with this? Can you tweak this? Can you?" Michael would say, "Yeah, let's change this around." And so him and Michael, and that's the way that all of those records go. I really just sit back on all of those records and let them tell me what to do. I really see, a lot of guys when they say you're gonna make a record, they say, "Oh, good." They're not, and they think, well, okay, I would say, "Johnny, what you going out?" And I'll say, "You do this, you do that, you do that." And I don't do that. I say, "Hey, Jeff."
And then,
Hey, Michael, and
Right.
hey, Steve, Steve put this set list together. This music would not be being played today if it wasn't for Steve. I said, "Steve, I got a gig." Steve said, "What you want to play?" I say, "Make a list, Steve. Make a list. Your tunes, all your tunes. It's all fine with me. Make a list, man. Don't ask me what I want to play. I get nervous if you ask me what I want to play."
well, we snuck New Day in
Yeah,
there.
it's
see.
just better. Yeah, that made me nervous wreck. I'm all nervous with that song.
I was going to see if they'd played Deb's Garden, but that might just make you too crazy.
Crazier.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. I need to get my conditioners right there. All of this has benefited to a lot of students because each of the 3 of you has done a lot in the education realm, taught a lot. And I talked to a lot of people that took lessons from John, particularly I'm thinking about Stanton Moore, who had a lot of interesting things to say about how you approached teaching drums and music generally. He felt that it was a great approach because he said he might walk in one day and he'd just put on a Bach piece and say, "Listen to this." Not talk about, what the drummer was doing. There wasn't a drummer.
Right.
But giving him a understanding that there was more to, like you said, more to what you're doing than just keeping time.
And it would force them to use their imagination because there was no drummer there to listen to. I said, "Man, you got to listen to the music and figure out any beat you know. Just figure out any beat you know and figure out how to fit it into that music. The music's just going along at a clip right here. You can fit any kind of beat to that. Any kind of beat will fit that.
Yeah.
If you listen to the music, So I did. Instead of using drum books and listen to this drummer and play this lick and transcribe this, I would have them really listen to music. A lot of music that most of the music didn't have drums on it, so they would be forced to listen to the music and say, "Okay, can you play it with a rock beat? Can you play it with a jazz beat? Can you play it with a reggae beat? The same piece of music, that Bach chorale. Can you play it with a, And I think that got him way more listening to the music as opposed to, listen to how does a drummer play this and how does a drummer play that, which is good. You got to know that.
Got to know that.
You got to know the fundamental stuff, else you never get a job. But I mean, to create your own inner musician, your own inner self, and express that, I think you have to really do a 360 with the music, and that's why I thought Bach and things like that, and there's some great Handel arias and cantatas, man, that are just bouncy and boppy, and you can play halftime funk with that, hip-hop funk, or you can play straight-ahead bop with it, and it works. And it works good because she's singing these great phrases,
Right.
These beautiful phrases. It's all very symmetrical and very constructed, like, in perimeters and using the same things that we use in jazz, 8-bar, 4-bar, 16-bar forms, and 32-bar forms. It's all the same. 4-bar phrases, 2-bar phrases, it's all the same, It's just a matter of listening to the music and getting comfortable with it. You know, for the drummers, get to about what you said, me putting on Bach when they walk in the room. You know, a lot of them I put on Joni Mitchell with no drum and say, play with that. You know, that's what I did with Brian Blade, and I'll be doggone if 30 years later he's cutting records with Joni Mitchell. He's putting on concerts for her birthday. And boy, when I told him to play along with that Joni Mitchell record, he thought I was crazy because he wanted to learn what Philly Joe was playing. He wanted to learn what Max Roach was playing and Art Blakey. And I said, no, play along with this Joni Mitchell record. All I really what I love to. I said, play with it.
Yeah.
You know, and he said, okay.
He's happy he did now.
Real happy.
All the way to the bank, right?
You know what I call him now, huh? High pockets.
Yes.
Got so much money, you got to put it up here.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
He take care of me.
I wanted to bring Peter and Steve into the conversation here for just a minute. Peter, I wanted to talk to you about something you've been doing now for, well, off and on with a little pandemic in between, and that is playing at the Bayou Bar at the Pontchartrain Hotel with a host of great artists. Now you've got 4 nights a week there, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Talk a little bit about the folks that you get to work with there and how that got going at the Bayou Bar.
Well, it's going to be easiest for me to remember by pointing out the people that are physically closest to me right now. This week, Steve Mazikowski was there this Tuesday. Stanton Moore was playing drums. Oscar Rossignoli, great pianist from Honduras that lives here now, he was playing with us. Johnny will be there next Tuesday. Herlin Riley has been there most Wednesdays with Derek Doge, who was Ellis Marsalis' musical director, and Dwight Fitch, who's a great pianist from here. Tonight, Nicholas Payton is playing piano. Jameson Ross is playing drums. Ricardo Pascal is playing saxophone. And then Friday, Wessel Warm Daddy Anderson is playing. Ed Perkins, who's a great vocalist. Peter Varndo, a young drummer, and Joe Ashlar. And as I'm saying this, I'm wondering, is this just a bunch of random names to these people? Perhaps. But it's been a lot of fun. I'll let you give your...
Well, I'll testify to the fact that everyone he just named is a top-notch player and has a variety of experience. So it's a chance to, in a small room, probably holds 60, 70 people if it's not too packed. And it's a very nice volume acoustically. There's not too much amplification. You get to hear some of the best musicians in the city play week after week. It's a beautiful thing that so many different players kind of cycle through that week. I really enjoy the variety you've built there with that gig.
Mm-hmm. So what I mentioned was just an example. I try to keep it consistently, but there's a handful of other musicians that I try to rotate through there, and I try to keep certain concepts intact on the various nights of the week. So hypothetically, if you were to go there every night of the week, you would hear something completely different, but still in the vein of New Orleans contemporary jazz.
Yeah. And Steve, you've been for I think 3 decades almost, maybe exactly, at UNO.
Yeah, that's true.
In the
Actually,
jazz studies.
33 years. You know, I started as an adjunct professor. Ellis Marsalis asked me to come on in 1989 to teach the guitar players. That's how we would go. You gotta play teach those guitar players. You know? So I was actually there since 1989, but I got a full-time position in 1992. So I just retired last July.
Yeah, and one of the things that gives you a little more time to do is work with your family.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I've been working with my son and daughter, and it's kind of hard for us to get together, but we made a few records called the Mazikowski Family, and we're all traveling. Sasha's somewhere right now. She's in she's in Berlin right now. She's in New York, and then she was in Turkey, and then now she's going to Hong Kong. So it's kind of hard for us all to get together at one time. But we're trying to plan a European tour in November. So we'll see if we can, because it's always really fun to travel with the family, and kind of make it a tourcation instead of a vacation.
Yeah. Well, and both of those young players have really developed tremendously. As your daughter's a vocalist,
Right.
son's a bass player,
Right, that's true.
and the three of you together, plus whoever else works with you, is really created a nice sound.
Yeah. And we're getting ready to go to the studio again and record something new before we,
Yeah.
go on our next endeavor.
Good.
And I'd like to mention also, I also, this is new, but I produced a book of my original compositions. It's at the printer right now. So I have a gig coming up at Snug Harbor. It's kind of the brainchild of Larry Seaberth. He wanted me to do a Mars reunion. I had a band called Mars, which was actually at the same time as early Astro Project. And anyway, we're going to do sort of a reunion gig, but I wanted to make a book of my songs because they were never written right correctly, and there's mistakes. So I went through and tried to make everything correct and perfect, and I was thinking, which song should I include? Because there's a lot of songs I've written. So I decided to whittle it down to only be songs that were ever recorded. Songs that I recorded, other people recorded my songs, and they're all available. All the recordings are available on YouTube. So if you ever wanted to hear a song as a reference, you can find it on YouTube. And it's called The Blue Book, and hopefully it'll be here next week, or
that's
at least
great,
before the gig at Snug.
And who's publishing that? How's that coming?
Well, it's self-publishing.
Self-publishing.
Right now. Yeah. It's actually Fred Laredo, who was the original owner of Tyler's Beer Garden, which was one of the more prominent jazz clubs in New Orleans. He has a printing operation now, and he's actually printing the books up for me.
Oh, cool.
But it's got pictures in it. It's interesting. It's got a lot of historical things. There's a lot of songs have lyrics. My collaborations with J. Miles Griggs and Sasha and. So it's got a lot of different things, not just music in it.
Yeah, well, you and Jay wrote a lot of tunes that were inspired by Confederacy of Dunces.
That's right, yeah. It's Tales of the Court. In fact, we played one tonight. It was called Mancuso.
Oh, yeah. I was trying to think of the title of that. I recognize it.
Yeah.
And how many tunes did you wind up including in the book?
It's about 60, maybe 55, 60. The book itself is of 155 pages, with everything in it,
And if one wanted to purchase a copy of this.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. I never thought that anybody would want to buy it. I would probably give it to some special people like, Peter. He plays a lot of my tunes at the club, and I'll give a few away, but it's like I'll probably have to sell some. I have to figure out how and when and where.
So
I'll have some for sale.
To be determined on the sales.
Yeah.
But when is the Snug gig?
That's on the 20th. That's not this Sunday, but the following Sunday.
Okay, so that's a week from Sunday at Snug Harbor, a pair of shows.
Right.
And Larry's on that with
Larry
you?
and Ricky Sebastian, who
great.
Johnny Vidacovich was also on the original record. And Dave Liebman was on the original record, too, because we were doing a lot of playing with him. And James Singleton's on the gig, too, because he was on the original record, the Mars record, So, and James Black, is no longer with us. He was the original Mars band was me, James Black, Larry Seaberth, and James Singleton. But we're going to maybe do a James Black tune as an homage to him.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Mars at the World's Fair.
Oh, yeah.
With Dave Liebman.
Oh, yeah.
And that was at a stage that rotated.
Right, that's
It'd
right.
swing you around from backstage onto the stage.
Right.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have time. I don't know who would have written any of these, but we have 10 more minutes worth of music that we can get from you guys. So just pick something and let's hear it.
I don't know anything out of the box. Johnny's going to tell me I'm going to learn something. But I'm sure this one will probably totally right up Johnny's alley as a tune to play. A lot of times, sidewalks.
Oh, yeah. One of the greats. Steve Mazikowski, Sidewalk Strut with Steve, Peter Harris at the bass, John Vidacovich at the drums and cymbals, ladies and gentlemen. Beautiful. I remind you once again that Steve and the Mars reunion are happening at Snug Harbor on August 20th. That's a week from Sunday. You can catch Peter 4 nights a week, Tuesday through Friday, at the Bayou Bar, the Pontchartrain Hotel. No cover, no minimum, ladies and gentlemen. And great music, maximum. And tonight, for example, Nicholas Payton, Jameson Ross, and Ricardo Pascal with Peter Harris. Just typical of the great players, these two guys included, who will often appear with him. And Mr. John Vidacovich has a long-running Thursday night at the Maple Leaf Bar, 8316 Oak Street. They're on summer hiatus now, but they'll be back a week from tonight at the Maple Leaf on the 17th of August. And he always brings a great trio together in there on Thursday nights at the Maple Leaf. Catch these guys, those places, 8 o'clock till... There you go. So plenty of chances to hear more music from these wonderful players. Also, another chance to catch a Talkin Jazz session coming up in September when we'll feature the terrific singer, songwriter, pianist Judith Owen, who's got a great new record out, Come On and Get It, a bunch of come hither tunes from some of the better women vocalists of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And she'll be here playing her music and their music for you. And that'll be on Thursday, September 21st at 2 o'clock right here in this space. Thanks for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you out amongst the music in New Orleans.
Fred Kasten, everyone. Fred Kasten.
Fred. Thank you, Fred.
You go. Thank you, David.
He hit all of the great points, so I'm just going to leave you with this. Please visit us down at 419 Decatur. That's the French Quarter Visitor Center for John Lafitte National Historical Park. Follow us on Instagram at NOLA Jazz NHP for more programs, and at our website at nps.gov/jazz. Thank you to the New Orleans Jazz Museum, and see y'all next time.